King of the Labyrinth, a brand new title by Yen Press, given the hardcover treatment. But is it worth your time? Join me and find out.
That man and his manga.
Hello and welcome to That Man, That Is Me Merchandise, and today we are talking about Yen Press's recent release of King of the Labyrinth, The Cry of the Minotaur by Yen Bis. I hope I pronounced that right. I'm very sorry if I haven't. Now, Yen Press have started releasing a fair few hardcover titles. It started with Overlord, and I feel like they've started putting out a fair few amount of them, including titles such as The Night is Short, Walk On Girl, Penguin Highway, and a few others. Now, I feel if a title gets a hardcover treatment, then it's something worth shouting about. However, I recently read their release of The Eminence in Shadow, and honestly, I didn't really rate it that much. Was King of the Labyrinth worth the hardcover treatment? Well, now, King of the Labyrinth is a straight-up fantasy title, and honestly, it had me hooked from the start. This feels more like a novel than it does a light novel. It's quite light in reading, however, there's no imagery or anything in there, as you would expect from a regular novel. So, I don't know, whether it's light or just a straight-up novel, I don't know. But it was quite strange that there wasn't any pictures or anything inside there, considering how you normally get at least a few at the very beginning or a few spread throughout the volume itself. I just thought that was something worth mentioning. This is a story of a Minotaur, a boss on the 10th floor of a labyrinth. There's about 100 floors in this labyrinth, and it's not anything particularly special. One day the Minotaur is born into existence, and it starts its life realizing that it will never escape the 10th floor. Very quickly we are introduced to a young heroine, a young hero who is on her way to become C rank. One of the easiest ways to become C rank is to defeat the Minotaur on the 10th floor. However, things don't go quite accordingly to plan. She quickly ends up in a position where the Minotaur has overpowered her, and she tries to escape to the safety. The Minotaur manages to break the rules of the labyrinth and follows her out, brutally murdering her in the process. This is kind of what you would expect from this series. It is rather brutal. It is pretty gory. In fact, if I was going to mention it to any of the series, I would say it is similar to So I'm a Spider, So What, in that we have a monster character in a labyrinth trying to find their way out. But also a little bit more like Overlord, you know, the whole brutal, over-the-top murder kind of thing. The issue comes is that the Minotaur is not really a character more than a monster. It kind of just goes, the Minotaur didn't know how to speak human language, so it didn't understand what the girl was saying. And then it kind of continues on with that. The Minotaur learns from the heroes, or learns from the adventurers or the monsters that it encounters, but it doesn't necessarily become a character itself. It just kind of just wanders around the labyrinth fighting things. And I could have rolled with this for quite some time. I felt this was fine. It was like this unstoppable presence in the labyrinth becomes stronger and stronger as the novel went on. I was really looking forward to seeing how that went on. The setup for the entire story I felt was really well done. It was graphic enough, the fight was long enough, and I felt that we were going to get a title where every character introduced was built up to make the Minotaur look better. Things start falling apart for this novel around halfway through. The Minotaur is shown to be incredibly strong. I'm absolutely fine with that. This is an overpowered character trope. Yeah, perfectly fine with that. The biggest issue comes from how fast it starts taking on powerful adversaries. It manages to defeat one of the most powerful heroes in all of the land very early on, and I was thinking, yeah, that's pretty fine. And then it goes on about this other character, this sorcerer, who's just like, oh yeah, this all-powerful sorcerer, and then A chapter later, that guy's also wiped out, and it feels like it goes through really fast. Also included is that we start getting more and more mentions of noble factions fighting each other, you know, as we see in many other series. And there's characters introduced, and they're introduced and built up and built up. And then I kind of feel like either nothing is done with them, they're either written out, or it just doesn't turn into anything. What really annoyed me was how the first half of the book was the Minotaur's struggle to become more and more powerful. It thirsts for violence, it thirsts for the battle. It realises that to think it's going to go on and on, the only thing keeping it going is fighting. However, after a fateful encounter, it quickly decides that it's going to go deeper into the labyrinth. I was like, that's fine. It's going to fight all of these powerful enemies. We've seen it fight some goblins and orcs and wolves, and we had some detailed fights. 2 pages later, the Minotaur has defeated the most powerful thing in the entire labyrinth and is now super overpowered. And I was just like, half of the volume's missed here. What? I kind of felt. I mean, if you look at Swarm of Spiders, so what? Spoiler alert: the labyrinth lasts about 4 or 5 volumes. The labyrinth in here just kind of gets conquered in about 5 pages, and it's so weird to kind of have this whole labyrinth feeling, especially a title called King of the Labyrinth, and then just have the whole conquest of the labyrinth just be a thing. I don't really feel much of the labyrinth, since we've already met a hero who manages to get very low down rather easily, and then this Minotaur, who is essentially the protagonist, just manages to go down and defeat everything without batting an eyelid. It didn't really make much sense to me why it went so fast. Unfortunately, with this series, it's hard to recommend. As much as I enjoyed the series itself, I felt that it was too short, and it kind of felt that it advanced things far too quickly for my liking. It is a really nice hardcover, and I really like the artwork on the front, but I don't know, I'm not sure where the series is going to go. Nearly all of the characters introduced have been either written out or have been killed off, apart from the main Minotaur, who is now, well, yeah, it's kind of hard to, the way it's doing it. Like, you'll turn the page in like 7 years will advance, or you'll turn the next page in 20 years of advance. I'm just like, why do we need to be going so fast? Why is this kind of a whole thing? I could understand if the Minotaur was a genuine character, but we kind of just have this final boss that we're just kind of like, yeah, there's a final boss there, and it's been there for all these years, and I'm kind of like, yeah, that's all we really need to know. And the whole noble thing, I just don't have any interest in. I read this to see an overpowered character become more overpowered. The series didn't really know what it wanted to be, and it's a huge shame because the first half of this had huge potential. I read nearly all of this book in about 3 or 4 hours. I was absolutely enthralled with it. I was so excited to get a few minutes just to read it. It's very easy reading, but it just wasn't enough. And at first I felt there wasn't going to be enough in the volume. I was expecting to be wanting more, but then I kind of finished it and I was just like, I don't really want more. Do I need more? I don't know, it just didn't really gel with me the way it was done. It just kind of felt that there wasn't even a lot of good ideas. I can't even see that with like Eminence and Shadow. I was thinking, oh, there's a lot of great ideas, it just was poorly executed. But there was just a really solid idea, a really good premise, which, let's face it, has been done in other series, but it wasn't executed well. And this makes me question why this was so deserving of getting a hardback. I'm finding this with Yen Press now. We are starting to get some hardback titles that I feel really don't deserve a hardback. Overlord, absolutely. Night is Short, Penguin Highway, Miracles of the General Store, absolutely fantastic titles, worth it. King of the Labyrinth is not worthy of a hardcover title. especially when there's titles such as the Saga of Tanya the Evil, which probably would have done better as a hardback. I would have loved to have a hardback of Tanya the Evil, but this is a title that you would read and you probably wouldn't bother reading anything more of. Same with Eminence and Shadow. Eminence and Shadow was fine, but there wasn't anything particularly special about it. So it kind of confused me as to why this was getting a hardback treatment. I'd love to know. I'd love to know what the criteria is. Maybe they weren't they weren't expecting much from it and tried to give it a hardback just to give it a boost of sales for people like myself who would just be like, yeah, that's a hardback. That's probably worthy of being a great title, but no. And it's a huge shame. I loved the first half of this, and even then I came back after reading it and thinking, you know, I enjoyed it. But then as I spoke to more people, I was kind of like, actually, there was a lot more problems with this, which is a huge shame. I probably will pick up Volume 2 just to hope that this gets a little bit better. Hopefully manage to expand on what they're doing. But yeah, I'm not 100% sure. But that's just my opinion. What did you think of The King of the Labyrinth? Is it a title that you absolutely loved? Or are you kind of like me where you thought it was really good but could have been better and you wonder why it was a hardcover title? Let me know in the comments, and if you haven't already, leave a like and consider subscribing. And if you like more titles, if you like more light novels, go check out this video up here. There's plenty more where that came from and plenty more recommendations for you.